Good evening and welcome to the Mayors and Community Conference for November 6th of 2025. I have a lot to go over tonight because a lot's happening in City Council and in the city. So I'm going to jump right in with initial disclaimers as always that when I'm speaking about things, I'm generally speaking about the council preferences or objections or whatever. And I will identify myself as having a personal opinion if it's different from that, just to keep it all kosher. The process, the point of this is to have full access to the mayor on every subject with dialogue as opposed to monologue, because in council chambers, no council member can respond to comments, complaints, whatever. So that's what this forum was started for, as in addition to just more transparency on the stuff that we're doing. So we will go over a number of issues, and I'll stop and ask the press for any comments that they want to make, and then we will go to anybody else that wants to chat about it. And in the end, you can ask whatever you want. So, all right. So what I want to start with is that very soon we're going to celebrate the grand opening. Yes, we are finally, of the Public Safety Building. That's the new home of a lot of places, which is the police, a lot of functions, which is the police department, 9/11 Emergency Dispatch Center, Office of Emergency Services, and Emergency Operations Center, and Fire Department Administration. So we're delighted that that's finally happening. It's Sunday, November 16th. There'll be a big program there with a number of speakers, ribbon cutting, information booths from various city departments, and public tours of the building. So that's one question we won't have to take tonight, is when's that going to open?
That's right.
That would be
Great.
I also want to give you an update on the Caltrain safety measures on our grade areas. And there's news to share there with the updated schedule. You'll recall that Caltrain has already made significant changes on our grade. That included new surface markings and bollards to enhance the vehicles and bicycle safety, wider crosswalks and pedestrian crossing gates, solar-powered raised delineators, which clarify the boundaries at night. And then they also collaborated with Waze and Google to improve the clarity of their directions, because some people were sadly stopping on the train tracks because they thought it was a turn. So we don't want that to happen. That's already been done. And the good news is that the next set of changes on Churchill, Alma, Charleston, and East Meadow, all these projects, we heard in the last 24 hours directly from Caltrain that they are on schedule for completion by the end of the year or early January. So that is the next two sets of security measures that are being put into place. Some are already in place at Churchill. And that's the automated real-time rail sentry system that we talked about last time. And then the other one is the anti-intrusion mats that run the width of the grade crossing just outside the crosswalks on the north and south side, and they make it physically difficult for a pedestrian to intrude between the fences. So those two things combined make it a lot safer. So they're going to begin construction, it says on their very own schedule, on 11/25. And that's scheduled to take 3 to 5 weeks, hence that's why it's going to be ready by the end of December or January. I'm just delighted for a lot of reasons, but this really makes the whole area out there much, much safer for pedestrians and autos. Have a lot of housing updates to do, which I'm always happy to do. We're now coming up on almost 2,400 total units that have been entitled by the city for the next 8-year RETA cycle. 424 of those are below market rate, BMR, so therefore affordable. And in addition, we've permitted, accessory dwelling units to the tune of 300. So that type of housing unit continues to thrive as an option in our city, which we expected and forecast. And even in the housing element, the housing HCD said, yeah, you're right, that's working. So they let us put a little bit more in that. And we weren't inflating. We know that works. I'm just so delighted that after all the work we did back from the housing element working group to PTC to council and all this work that staff did in the planning department, we just have a lot of developer interest in building new housing projects in our town. And we have that in spite of very high construction costs and very high interest rates. That dampers it, and it makes it a little bit more expensive, but most of the developers are playing for the long term in Palo Alto, and it's a good story so far. And we'll also note that we're going to have a housing dashboard released soon, and then you can hear it. You don't have to hear it from me. You can look every day and see what's going on, because it'll be on our website at paloalto.gov/housing. Staff's finishing that up. It'll be later this month, and so it's going to show anybody that wants to look there where we are with the pipeline and where they are in the process. Other housing updates. A number of you have heard about good old SB 79. Last week, Council discussed that. That's a new bill that just came out of the legislature that the governor just signed. Although it doesn't go into effect until July of next year, we have a lot of work to do, as does the state, on the logistics and back and forth of what needs to happen by July 1. So we talked about that in the context of what was already going on, which was the downtown housing plan. And this is so encompassing that we made a decision on council to effectively pause on just working on the downtown housing plan and first look at SB 79 on a broader basis across the entire town, notably, obviously downtown, but also Cal Ave and any other areas where we can look at to put some density. So that's going to be another big lift for the planning department after they just took a breath from doing the housing element. But that's our state legislature for you. So that's what we're going to do. I formed an ad hoc committee to work with the planning department and on this to get ideas and then generate those ideas, mash them back and forth, and as ad hocs do, then come back and make some recommendations to the council. We also have some news on, in progress on downtown parking lots. That was a targeted item for a new place to put parking from the housing element working group through the housing element. We provided feedback last week on an updated housing project design from Alto Housing, which is our chosen partner there, to develop on downtown surface parking on the corner of Kipling and Lytton, which we call Lot T. And it's going to be 100% affordable housing units. Council was broadly supportive of the design option that includes 72 units of all affordable housing on a 6-story building with a mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom homes. And we're expecting Alta Housing to submit their application in January. And then we're going to have a community meeting set for December 1 over at Avenidas at 4:30 if you're already going to put that on your calendar. So more and more affordable housing. We're getting there. And the next one is about affordable housing. I want to mention that we have about $10 million currently in our affordable housing fund. That's after officially allocating, and making a motion on it because at the last meeting, $5 million to 3001 El Camino, which is a charities housing project. Again, 100% affordable housing, 130 units total. So we made our contribution to that of about $5 million. It's going to have full on-site services and manager units and just first class. So another project that's chipping away. And then the third item in that area is we are going to move to a concept proposal for another affordable housing project on what was the former Fry's electronic site, known as the Sobrato project internally. And we'll be discussing the affordable housing this month and look at positioning the city to look out for to issue an RFP next year. That's part of the full development of that area, which is going to be mixed use, but one of the parts of the negotiated arrangement with Sobrato was that we were going to have this amount of space where we could put out affordable housing. And there's other space for open space at some point in time, driven by us. So another step. So happily, lots of news about affordable housing in Palo Alto. Couple points on the Coverly progress. That has been in the news a lot, so I just wanted to make sure that everybody's tuned in on that. We had the final community meeting for Coverly master plan in September. It had about 150 community members attending, highly engaged in reviewing the refined design concepts. And since that time, council weighed in as well on the draft concept designs, and we'll see that again in December. So that's moving along. We're on a fast track there because we have to get a lot done. It has to go to the ballot next year. We're going to also have a poll out soon for the community to share their opinions with us on programming, funding, and more. So that's another piece of community input to what we're trying to get done. And to give Coverly a bit of a spotlight as we look to transform that community center, we're going to start up a movie series at Coverly this month in December and January. So which one of these movies do you like? You want Coco, you want Polar Express, or you want the Smurfs? We got something for everybody there across the next 3 months. All movies are at 5:30, so just do a little activation of Coverly to let people know that it's already there. We just want it to make it look a little bit nicer. Also wanted to note that tomorrow, well, first I'm going to say, as you know, the federal government is cutting funds for everything, including medical, and they're even cutting it for food, as is in the news daily right now. So tomorrow I'm going to go down and visit Second Harvest, Silicon Valley. That's a food bank that serves Santa Clara and Santa Mateo counties. And their mission is to address the tremendous food insecurity in our area. It is a regional problem that unquestionably affects our own neighbors and some residents here in Palo Alto and some workers here in Palo Alto. And in fact, they report that about 1 in 6 residents in these two counties depend on Second Harvest for food source. It's just a remarkable, sad stat, but it's a remarkable organization that's trying to fix that. So that's about 500,000 people a month that they serve. Evidence of hard times all around us. And then the federal cuts to SNAP and Medicaid and ACA are just going to make things worse. So I just want to go down there and show our city's report for this magnificent organization, an essential organization, and to learn logistically how they possibly execute that mission, because it's a massive organization. So I'll be visiting down there with the CEO tomorrow. Okay. Now, any questions on any of that stuff? Because I'm going to move to oversized vehicles, which is a bigger subject. Yep.
Just want to SB 79. How dramatically will it affect the downtown?
Just on SB 79, just go in a broad way, how dramatically will it affect the plans for downtown? And what is the best and worst things you envision you'll have to change to accommodate the what's in SB 79?
It's frankly, it's a little hard to tell right now. That's why the planning department asked for some help, some collaboration from council members, so that they can just get into an ad hoc setting and hash around what's going on. We know that there has to be a certain amount of density. There's provisions in the law that, as I said, even the state bureaucrats are coming up the learning curve on, and certainly our planning department is, because it's a whole new law. This happens every year, and this one's a biggie. So there's a lot of density, but there's a possibility of sort of relocating some of that density to other places in what's called the alternative, what's the phrase? Alternative plan, yeah. I thought it was some other acronym.
More high-rise?
Well, yeah, there's gonna be more high-rise, but some of that can be, it's just too complicated to even go into, but there's a certain amount of density that has to go within 1.5 mile of transit stops, which is the railroad stations or the bus stations. And then if you don't want to put it there, you can come up with an alternative plan and put it in some other area. But how you do that, the devil's in the details.
One follow-up. My concern is the half mile from train stations brings us almost up to Middlefield Road. In other words, all this, all the way up to Oregon, is susceptible to the rulings in SB 79, which means that, the way I read it, that if you have property that somebody wants to build high-rise or multiple family in this area, you can do it because SB 79 says, yes, forget about city zoning. The state says you can build in this area, multiple family and high-rise. Is that really gonna happen?
Well, that's what we're trying to dig through, but that's sort of the intent, I think, of the legislation. I don't want to add any more to that. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we're just at the initial stages of digging in and seeing that, but that's the concern. That we don't even call them R1 anymore unofficially because you can put a couple ADUs and things like that, but what used to be called R1 could literally have a really tall building if somebody wants to buy a couple lots and put them together and go high.
I was interested in hearing a little more about the downtown plan being suspended. Can you say a little more about what that means? Are you just taking a pause while these ad hoc meetings are happening? Like, is the group being disbanded? Is the grant money being returned?
No.
And is there a revised timeline for when the downtown plan?
Yeah, no, thanks for that question. I should have been more clear. What I tried to say was just a pause because we have to consider 79 as sort of the whole blanket issue in the whole area to see where the density can go. And I guess in one sense, that's good because it can go in a number of places, but we got to act on it now. We thought we were done after we got the housing element approved, but we weren't. So we have to jump back in and see this whole new great big item to manage before we can sort of go forward while still trying to do execution on the housing plan for the number of units that we have the quota for. So no, it's going to stay in place. It's just we feel like we have to really understand this SB 79 for the entire city and then go back to the specifics of the downtown plan. In essence, it would be too narrow to just stay looking at the downtown plan right now when we suddenly have a very high priority. We're sort of triaging. Anybody else, for non-press included, from some of the earlier things that I said?
Specifically to housing, right? Any other questions?
Or anything else I commented on, because I'm going to go into.
That's true. Nothing right now.
All right?
Sorry, quick question. Are bus stops included as well?
Yes.
For Palo Alto?
Well, yes, but
Not as the, under SB 79, not as the tier 1 areas that are subject to the same kind of density. The bus stops are not.
okay. Now I want to talk about the issue of.
Maybe watch this mic.
Oh, sorry. Can I put it out here? Yeah. Okay. I want to talk about the issue of oversized vehicles. Governments need acronyms, so we're calling it OSVs. So what does it mean, this issue of oversized vehicles? And I just want to spend a couple minutes on that because I want to make sure we all know what we're talking about on the same page. So what it addresses in terms of the problems and the solutions is sort of the following. We definitely have a homeless problem here in Palo Alto. And actual counts that have been published in the last couple of weeks confirm that compared to the rest of the county, our unhoused population is radically higher as a percentage of those that live in OSVs for reasons that we don't need to worry about because it's just the case. And so part of that is good news compared to the rest of the county because these folks have a roof over their head. But the other problem we're dealing with is that we have an OSV problem because the volume of overnight parking has just significantly increased over the last year for a variety of reasons. And the volume, certainly in my personal view, is just too much to handle in the business parks and some of the other areas, and a couple of the residential areas. And we're all aware of the fallout and the issues. We have folks that are customers of the businesses can't get there. Employees can't get to work and have a place to park. Even delivery trucks can't unload stuff to get there, and they're parking it way down the street. So it's just And there's sanitation issues that are quite real, and there's clutter issues. So there are two problems, therefore, that we're trying to address simultaneously. And council wants to give sort of urgent relief to these businesses because it's gotten to be such a large volume, while also working to find alternative places for some of these OSVs to park, and also to continue doing outreach to making folks that are living there aware of alternatives. Noting for the record that waiting lists to get into shelters and affordable housing are very long. So the obvious long-term best case scenario is that people move out of OSVs and they get housing. In that regard, we're very eager to get the Home Key project up and running on San Antonio in early 2026. That's going to have 88 units of transitional housing, and it can be up to 200 people. So that's 88 households that can be serviced if qualified and so on, to get into those home units and potentially out of their OSVs. So that's the kind of ideal case that we want to try to get people into. Obviously, creating more affordable below market rate housing is another future option, and you just saw some of the future coming to light here on some of the other housing items that I mentioned. But unfortunately, that's the future, and this is now. So we have to work on both of these problems simultaneously, and that's what we're doing. So our Policy and Services Standing Committee worked on this starting back in August, based on a very broad, very deep set of options created by our staff. In my view, fantastic work in terms of setting out the various options that we can look at. And from there, council has now moved on to action, and is getting going on this on a number of the ideas, not the full set of ideas from staff or from Policy and Services. And so I want to recap that for you right now. So on October 30th, council made a motion, I in fact made the motion, seconded by the vice mayor, to do a number of things. The first one is that we are developing an urgency ordinance to prohibit parking of detached or inoperable vehicles on the public streets. So that gives us another tool to take action on that type of vehicle that obviously is not going to move every 24 hours, every 72 hours as the state law requires, because they're parked there, they can't move. So it's quite obvious that they have no intention of moving. The second one is to develop an urgency ordinance to prohibit the renting of public parking spaces, which has been covered in the press as under the right word, which is van lording. And that's folks that are basically renting our city property for illegal parking for them to make a profit on the van that they're leasing and increase the number of folks that have vans out there. A couple other things, I'm not going to read each point. We're supposed to refine the scope and begin implementation of street cleaning and sweeping, and staff is already active on that. Council asked me to create a ad hoc committee to get in the weeds and work on this intensely and very quickly. So I did appoint that committee. One guy in that committee is me, as well as Julie Lithcott-Hames and Keith Rechtal. That ad hoc has already met once, and we're going to meet weekly, at least through the end of the year, and see where we are at that point. That's in contrast to most committees that meet monthly. So I just want to emphasize that with respect to the urgency of what we're trying to move on here. The other thing we want to do is try to look at some other safe parking sites. There was some discussion on council of reaching out to both faith communities as well as businesses who might have some space, some vacancies, some extra space in the parking lot, and just say, help. We have what we hope is a short-term problem. We need help here. I hope some of them are listening right now. What can you do to take 10 folks and give them a place to stay for the night? And we have all the details to work out on that, how that's going to work and who's going to pay inevitable expenses and so on. But first we have to have folks that interested in working with us to try to give them a safe place to stay that doesn't have the other collateral damage items that I talked about before. Ditto with the faith communities, although clearly their parking lots are smaller and they're in mostly different areas. As we get going with Life Moves, this is probably 6 months out, not today, but we also want to look at a buyback program that we might be able to do a partnership with them on, so that folks can get into the shelter and still, you know, and if they don't want their RV, we can help them, you know, get some asset value out of that. So that kind of, you know, activity. And a number of other items. The only other thing I want to mention is that to show that we're serious about it and also that this costs money, council in the same motion approved up to about $800,000 for all of the things that have to happen here in the details, because we have to have you know, various signs around street sweeping, and we have to increase staff for street sweeping and cleaning and various things like that. So there's already, you know, money on the table to fund this. Some of these things aren't going to work. Some of these things are going to work, and we're going to try to push the envelope to get a number of these things to work so that we can, again, address both sides of the issue. There are issues that in the first meeting of the ad hoc we haven't addressed yet, but there are other items on the agenda that we'll look at. Some were raised by staff, some were raised by council members at the last meeting. So I'll pause there for questions. Oh, I think Diana was first again. She's got the mic on.
800.
At $800,000 for street sweeping and signs sounds like an awful lot of money. I mean, signs don't cost a huge amount of money. How come is this number so high? And over what period of time are you considering spending the $800,000?
We'll have our city manager read the numbers that we voted on by category.
Yep, thank you. So, to your point, well, you may be surprised. Signs do cost a lot, and it's not simply the signs themselves, it's to actually get them installed. So there's some work that's required to ensure that the signs are put in the right location so that they're legally enforceable, as well as to silly logistics, but nonetheless important, that when you put a new post down, you don't hit a line or a water line or something that's underground. So that's all part of the process. And again, we're looking at doing this across the city. We've identified 18 streets that are receiving the primary impact, so this could cover all of those. There are also parts of the work that will involve our police department for their additional enforcement work. You know, there's the transportation staff, the engineering staff, and there's overall project management that my office will be needing to beef up in order to make sure all of this comes together. And that's really to get us through most of the remainder of the fiscal year and get the required regulations in place.
I guess I don't quite understand. I mean, so okay, you need all these people and all these departments to put in signs, and you have to make sure you put them in the ground in the right way. But still, how much, can you ever give me some estimate of how much one sign to really put it in and finish it off properly would cost, or how much 10 signs? I mean, some indication of, I still don't know why it's so expensive.
I'd be happy to follow up with that information. I don't have it handy. But again, I would just note that it's not just signs, it's both the police enforcement that we'll need to follow, as well as when we're talking about street sweeping, there's also the street sweeping activity that's involved, again, that will be done citywide.
Thank you. Mayor, just following up on a few things you mentioned about the RV topic. Do you guys have a rough timeline for when those two ordinances will be ready about landlords and disabled vehicles?
Yeah, December 8th.
Okay, so next month? Great. And thought I had a second question. I can't remember it. Okay, that's all.
Okay, others from the audience might want to have comments on this?
Please correct me if I'm wrong, but the projected amount for some of these things that were going to be implemented that the news has been talking about for a couple months now was projected to be a lot more than 800,000. I don't have the exact notes with me right now. I think it was like at least more than $1 million, maybe more than 2 million. So is this going to be a slow implementation of everything over the next year, or did council find some way to cut the necessary money for that?
No, I'm really glad you asked that question because the very comprehensive report that staff did showed a lot of ideas and what each one could cost. And I've gotten comments sent to me of, why are we spending millions of dollars on X, Y, and Z? That's what I'm reading literally from the draft minutes to show what's approved as opposed to what was discussed at prior committee meetings. This is all that matters, is what we approve. And this segment, this phase is about $800,000.
Can I add?
Sure, absolutely.
And that little less than $800,000 really covers the regulatory changes that we're talking about. It does not include things like additional safe parking lots, which are definitely a part of our next steps, but we don't have specific dollar figures associated with that yet.
Just a quick follow-up. And then the banning of the, or like the restrictions of the inoperable vehicles, you said that was starting in December. But some of this, like the safe parking site, that's projected to be maybe next year, something you're looking at. So what kind of assistance would be offered to those people who have inoperable vehicles?
Yeah, at this point, we do have limited safe parking available, and there may be opportunities to expand the existing safe parking at our faith-based sites. So those are possibilities within this time frame. They haven't specifically been fleshed out, but again, we've got our own safe parking site here in Palo Alto. Very limited capacity, but that is an option.
Other questions from the audience? Okay.
No more over here? Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other topics that you'd like to talk about? Yeah,
Yeah, I have a
Mike for you.
Sorry, we do need the mic, so.
Thank you. This is a very different topic, but first I want to thank you, Mayor and City Manager, for these press conferences. They're really great. It's my first time attending, but I've watched them on replay and they've been informative. As you may know, Palo Alto residents feel so strongly that council proactively defends city neighborhoods from San Francisco International Airport's for-profit dumping of noise over the city, that in 2018, council voted on a step-by-step policy to do just that. Specifically, to not miss any opportunity to sue. For council to deliberate and vote on each case. Not leave it to staff, to a staff decision or in obscurity. An opportunity is here with SFO's draft environmental impact report, or DEIR. As a local example, the city of Alameda expeditiously achieved a settlement from Oakland on their airport DEIR. Can you comment when council will deliberate and vote on suing SFO on their DEIR? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. We are tracking the approval of the master planning for SFO, and my understanding is that that wouldn't really be ripe at this point, but at that, quite frankly, Jennifer, is one who is keeping a close eye on the steps that SFO is taking. Be happy to get together with you and understand any key deadlines you see coming up to make sure that we're able to act quickly when those opportunities arise.
Thank you. Other comments? Here we go. Yeah. Mike is on the way.
Greetings, Mayor Lauing, and thank you for your service to our community and for providing this opportunity for questions of current relevance to our community. My name is Carol Garston, and I'm a 23-year resident of Palo Alto and the founder and producer of the Third Thursday California Avenue Music Festival. I recently sent you an email of my concerns about the Third Thursday Music Festival being canceled by the city manager. In my recent meeting with the city manager, Councilwoman Julie Lithgott-Haynes, and John King, both the city manager and Councilwoman Julie Lithgott-Haynes claimed that the so-called complaints from Cal Ave business owners was the reason that the city canceled the Third Thursday event. This so-called list of businesses with grievances has never been made public nor revealed to me. I've been essentially told without any documentation of specific complaints that I can no longer run the event that I created and have successfully produced for the past 30 straight months. In the last 10 days, I've collected an action petition of support from 31 of the 35 business merchants on Cal Ave who enthusiastically support my continuance in producing the event. There are currently 45 operating businesses on Car-Free Cal Ave, and my list of supporting businesses is continuing to grow. Additionally, I have collected about 150 signatures of support from the community at large. In our current world, where misinformation and fake news is rampant, my question to you is, what will you do as the leader of our city council to support an open dialogue to resolve this conflict and insist on transparency and facts and not rumors and innuendo?
I don't actually know quite what you mean by open dialogue, but matters of this kind I don't think are suitable for television cameras. Any other questions?
Other comments or questions? Other topic?
Ed, City Manager Ed, this is just a clarification that I would like to, when you were talking the other day about all the contracts we give out for consulting, you said, okay, the city council is going to continue to study this matter, and you would present to them I couldn't quite understand what you were presenting to them, some sort of a way to better handle consultant bids or something like that. Could you clarify what you said and what it meant?
Sure, be happy to. I think I was referring to developing a best practices guide for our staff that would really cover the entire life cycle in which we will, or that we do, engage consultants, from the early on budgeting decisions on whether work should be done in-house or through consultants, all the way through how we select consultants, how we work with the consultants on projects, and how we close those out and encapsulate lessons learned. So it's really that entire life cycle, and expect to be able to report that back to the council after the first of the year.
Thank you. Just to follow up on that consultant subject, does the scope of that involve the city auditor, which is also being conducted by consultants based on council direction?
Yes, it does. I have been in contact with the city auditor, and they have on their work plan developing somewhat independent best practices to look at, again, practices both from other agencies as well as what might be helpful for us. So they're doing that work in parallel, and will feed into our work.
But my point is, they themselves are consultants who replaced in-house staff. So is there like an independent look as to whether that decision is working out for the city? Because, I mean, the city's basically consulting out an office that's in the city charter to a firm in Chicago. But is that consideration of that earlier decision part of the scope of this?
Well, it certainly could be an application of the best practices that we are developing, and it might be an interesting case study to see to what extent our work with Baker Tilly in this particular case follows those best practices. And again, it's everything from how we develop scopes and budgeting and ensure that we're generating the best value for the dollars.
Great, thank you. So also, I just want to go back to the question I forgot to ask about the RV topic. It's yes or no. I'm just curious whether you guys have had any interest yet, or from any commercial property owners or congregations? I know it's still pretty early in the process, but
We haven't done a lot of outreach on that. One ad hoc member sent a letter to some people, but that's as far as we've gotten as of yesterday when we had the ad hoc meeting, so.
okay, thank you.
But we're eager to see, that's an unknown exercise. We're eager to see if there's some opportunity there. Because even if if 3 businesses took 5 OSVs for a while, that would even help. So, I also said from the dais that, we have to do some things that are going to affect us at scale. One of the things that council discussed was, are there incremental things like a couple more or 3 spaces at Ging Road where we already have this kind of facility? And A, there isn't, but B, if there was, that's not something in my view at this point that we should be looking at. I think we have to look at something that's gonna more significantly take big bites out of the current population for the problems that are there, which means we have to have cooperation from the businesses and even in some cases from the occupants to help us figure out how to get through the combined problems of unhoused and also folks can't do business.
Your court, my court, the wall. Back to consultants. Ed, do you envision, you're going to prepare the plan, and you said you could use an auditor for part of developing your plan. Do either of you envision using auditors during this process of getting consultants and checking what they're doing and how their work is, or will that all be part of the staff management of the consultants?
It's an interesting question. I'd say in general, auditors would typically come in after the fact rather than while a project is ongoing. So it may not be something that we would typically do on an ongoing basis. As it happens, and it's not directly applicable, but our city auditor has been doing over-the-shoulder looks at our public safety building as one of our largest capital expenditures ever. And as such, having that independent look as the work is proceeding and as the bills are coming in, it has been helpful to provide both assurance that the money's being spent well, as well as checks and balances in terms of how the process is working.
Other topics, other questions?
Okay, great. Thanks for your attendance in person and those of you online, and any of you want to give feedback on this format, please feel free to get at me at just, ed.lauing at paloalto.gov. Thanks very much and good night.
We appreciate it.